went on a virtual date with a woman who said all her friends' grandparents had been dead for 40 years. I'm 25. She was 27. That was the first clue that I was not dealing with a normal lesbian, but a time-traveling social experiment, or just the most condescending person I'd ever met. Chapter 1. The Pixelated Prelude. At 25, I, Marlowe, believed I had the rhythm of dating down. The app-swiping ballet, the introductory text tango, the cautious predate vetting waltz. It was a rhythm, predictable and safe. Then I met Juniper. Her profile was a curated gallery of misty forest hikes, close-ups of intricate pottery, and a truly magnificent sourdough loaf. No face shots that clearly showed her features, just an artistic impression of a life lived deliberately. Her bio read, "Seeking meaningful connection over collective noise. Plant mom, ceramic novice, and believer in slow living." Our texting was unique. She used full sentences, proper grammar, and never an emoji. It felt less like flirting and more like corresponding with a very thoughtful, slightly enigmatic pen pal. She was intensely focused on COVID safety, which I, a responsible citizen who missed my grandma fiercely, respected completely. "I have to be exceptionally careful," she wrote one evening. "My inner circle contains several immunocompromised individuals. Our in-person interactions are still very limited." "Totally understand," I tapped back. "My Nona would skin me alive if I was reckless. Virtual is perfect." So, our first date was scheduled, a Zoom call on a Tuesday night. I set up my laptop in my living room, a space decorated with a mix of IKEA furniture and vibrant art prints from local queer artists. I had a glass of wine. She logged on from what looked like a sunroom, filled with thriving green plants and shelves of hardback books. She was prettier than her photo suggested, with sharp, intelligent eyes and dark hair pulled into a loose bun. She wore a simple, high-quality linen shirt. I was in a well-worn band t-shirt. The first 20 minutes were pleasant. We talked about work, our hobbies. I showed her my monstera, which was putting out a new leaf. She showed me a vase she was throwing, her hands moving with a quiet confidence as she described the coiling technique. There was a stillness about her that was both intriguing and unnerving. Then, I made the joke. We were talking about family quirks. "You know what I find funny?" I said, leaning into the screen. "How people will call their grandparents anything but grandma and grandpa. Like, 'This is my Nona,' or 'Meet my pops.' It's like we're all trying to give them a cooler brand." Juniper smiled, a small, tight movement. "I suppose. So, do you have any friends who do that?" I asked, trying to keep the thread going. She paused, her head tilting. "No. All of my friends' grandparents have been dead for like 40 years. The silence that followed was thick enough to plant one of her succulents in. I blinked. I did the math, right there on the spot. We were 25 and 27. Our friends' grandparents, if they were alive, would likely be in their 70s or 80s. For them to have been dead for 40 years. "The math is not mathing," I said slowly, my brow furrowed. That's when she explained. It wasn't a quick explanation. It was a manifesto. "Marlowe," she began, her tone patient, as if guiding me through a complex concept. "I've never really related to people our age. The obsession with social media, the frantic pace, the lack of substantive conversation. It's also transient. My friends are my chosen family. They happen to be 50 and above. They have wisdom, stability, and they know how to live a life of intention." I was stunned. Not because she had older friends, that in itself was fine, but because of the sheer, unadulterated judgment that laced her words. She wasn't just stating a preference. She was issuing a verdict on an entire generation, my generation. The date limped on. I mentioned, in a fit of defensive pride, a funny video I'd seen on TikTok. Juniper's lips pursed. "TikTok," she said, the word sounding like a sour taste in her mouth. "I find the whole concept rather childish, don't you? All those frantic edits and trends. It's like a digital sugar rush for the attention span." That was the moment the last shred of potential romance evaporated. She wasn't just a woman with different interests. She was shaming me for mine. She was building a persona on a foundation of perceived superiority, and every word felt like a brick being laid between us. When the clock finally granted me mercy, she gave me that small, tight smile again. Well, Marlo, this was interesting. Maybe we can do something again, soon. The look on my face must have been a masterpiece of internal screaming translated into pure, unadulterated deadness. My enthusiasm, when I replied, was so surgically removed from my voice that I might as well have been reading the terms and conditions of a software update. Yeah, maybe. Take care, Juniper. I ended the call and stared at my own reflection in the black screen of my laptop. I felt exhausted and a little insulted. I texted my best friend, Sage. I have just been deemed intellectually and spiritually deficient by a woman who apparently thinks she's the reincarnation of a 1950s salon hostess. Sage. Details. Now. And did you say hostess? Like the cupcake? Chapter 2, The Sage Advice. I met Sage at a queer poetry slam 3 years ago. Where I am all loose limbs and impulsive decisions, Sage is grounded, a steady oak of a woman with a wicked sense of humor and a heart of absolute gold. She listened, sipping her tea, as I recounted the entire Juniper saga, complete with dramatic reenactments of the dead grandparents' line. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, then burst out laughing. Oh, Marlo. You attract them, don't you? The eccentrics. This wasn't eccentric, Sage. This was condescending. She made me feel like my TikTok account was a moral failing. Okay, first of all, Sage said, pointing her teaspoon at me. Your TikTok, where you analyze the queer coding in 90s cartoons, is a public service. Second, she sounds deeply insecure. People who are truly comfortable with themselves don't need to build their identity on shaming others. She's crafting a whole personality around being old soul, which is just a fancy way of saying she's bad at connecting with her peers. I sighed, slumping onto her couch. I know. It just felt so invalidating. Like my life, our life, is somehow less than because we enjoy things that were invented after 1995. Her loss, Sage said firmly. She'll be over there sipping her herbal tea with the Golden Girls, and you'll be out here living a vibrant, connected, actual 25-year-old's life. Which, by the way, includes going to the Thistle with me and Alex on Saturday. No moping. The Thistle was our bar. An unassuming pub with a faded bisexual flag sticker on the door, owned by a formidable Irish lesbian named Brenda who called everyone pet. It was where we went. To decompress, to dance badly to 80s music, and to remember that our queer community was loud, messy, and gloriously alive. Saturday night, the Thistle was buzzing. The air was thick with the smell of beer and shared laughter. Alex, Sage's girlfriend, was telling a hilarious story about a disastrous catering gig, and I felt the Juniper-induced tension finally leave my shoulders. This was real. This was connection. It was on a screen, it was in a loud, slightly sticky bar, it was in the way Alex tucked Sage's hair behind her ear without even thinking. It was multifaceted and imperfect and beautiful. I was at the bar, waiting for a round of drinks, when I felt a presence beside me. Busting moves to Whitney Houston, I see. A classic choice. I turned. The woman next to me had a warm, crinkling smile and eyes the color of rich soil. She had a silver ring through her nose and wore a leather jacket covered in patches from various bands, none of which I recognized but all of which looked cool. It's mandatory, I said, grinning. Bar rules. I'm Rhiannon, she said. But my friends call me Rhi. Marlo, I replied. Like the detective. Cool name. And just like that, we were talking. It was effortless. We talked about music, about the terrible pop art in the bar, about the best place to get late-night fries. She was a woodworker, she told me, who made custom furniture. She was 28. When she mentioned her friends, it was a story about helping one of them move apartments and breaking a bookshelf in the process. No judgment, no manifestos. Just life. She didn't make me feel childish. She made me feel interesting. Chapter 3, The Contrast. The next few weeks were a study in contrasts. My date with Ree was at a noisy, vibrant food truck park. We shared loaded nachos and she told me about the existential dread she felt when sanding a particularly stubborn piece of oak. I told her about my failed attempt at growing basil. We laughed until my sides hurt. Afterward, we texted constantly. Her messages were full of emojis, typos, and voice notes of her dog barking in the background. It was easy. It was normal. My experience with Juniper, however, had left a strange mark. It was like a splinter in my mind. I found myself looking at my own life, at our community, with a new, defensive kind of love. I saw the value in our shared cultural touchstones, even the silly ones. I saw the strength in our chosen families, forged in the messy, complicated present, not in a curated, sepia-toned past. Sage noticed the shift. "You're getting deep on me, Marlo. Still thinking about the ceramic ghost?" It's just, she was so sure her way was the right way. The mature way. But what is maturity, really? Is it pretending you don't like pop music? Or is it being secure enough to admit you do? The latter. 1,000 times, the latter, Sage said. Maturity is integration, not rejection. It's carrying your past with you, not using it as a shield against the present. Her words clicked into place. Juniper wasn't an old soul. She was a scared one. She was hiding in an idealized version of a bygone era because the complexity and chaos of the modern world, of our generation, was too much to handle. There was a sadness in that, I realized. A loneliness. I was building something with Ree, something based on mutual respect and shared reality. We went to a DIY art show one weekend, and the next, we spent a Sunday afternoon at her workshop, where she let me clumsily sand a piece of scrap wood. The smell of sawdust and the sound of her old radio playing were a kind of therapy. It was real, tangible creation, not a performance of it. Chapter 4. The Unlikely Intersection. Life, with its wicked sense of humor, loves a coincidence. A few months later, Ree was showcasing a few of her pieces at a local artists and makers market. She was nervous, and I was there as her unofficial hype woman and coffee fetcher. The market was held in a renovated warehouse, bustling with energy. Ree's stall, filled with beautiful, solid wood tables and chairs, was getting a lot of attention. I was beaming with pride, holding 2 lattes and trying not to spill them. And then I saw her. Juniper. She was standing at a stall directly across the aisle, carefully arranging a series of elegant, hand-thrown ceramic bowls and vases. Of course. The pottery. Our eyes met across the crowd. For a split second, I saw the same sharp, assessing look. Then, her gaze flickered from me to Ree, who had just thrown an arm around my shoulders, pulling me into a side hug as she excitedly pointed out a potential buyer. "That guy's been eyeing the walnut coffee table for 10 minutes. Ree whispered, her breath warm against my ear. I looked back at Juniper. Something in her posture had changed. The unshakable certainty seemed to have softened, just at the edges. She was watching us, watching the easy affection, the shared excitement, the vibrant, young life that was happening right in front of her. She saw me, not as a disappointing date, but as a person embedded in a community, in a relationship, in the messy, beautiful now. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't a greeting, not really. It was more like an acknowledgement. A quiet concession that perhaps there was more than one way to live a life of intention. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, and turned back to Ree, handing her the latte. "Here you go, my brilliant, talented girlfriend." Her face lit up. Girlfriend, huh? I like the sound of that. As the market buzzed around us, I didn't feel dead inside. I felt utterly, completely alive. Juniper was out there, hopefully happy, hosting her dinner parties for her senior friends. And I was right here, in the loud, chaotic present, holding my girlfriend's hand, surrounded by the art we were making of our own lives. To each, indeed, their own. And I had found mine.